Hi, Pastor Ed Kropa here from Hope Lutheran Church in Freehold, New Jersey with my 5 for 5, 5-minute devotions Tuesday through Friday each week, Tuesday through Saturday each week, focusing this week on the readings from Reformation Sunday. Today we're going to be looking at Paul's letter to the Romans, the 3rd chapter, concentrating on verses, the second half of 22, 23, 24, and 25, where Paul writes, "For there is no distinction, since all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. They are now justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God put forward as a sacrifice of atonement by his blood, effective through faith." So justified by grace through faith, made right with God. That's what atonement is. You take that word atone, at one meant. It's being made right and being reunited with God. And the first part of that is the acknowledgement that all have sinned and fallen short of God's glory. We don't deserve God's favor and blessings. In fact, that's that word grace, as I like to tell my confirmation students, that grace is when you do get what you don't deserve. And so we don't deserve what God has done for us. One way of thinking about this, somebody thought of this first, and it's sort of interesting. So, you think of a really good person. Nobody thinks that anybody is necessarily perfect, I guess. But as Richard Wilson writes, suppose a person sins, 3 times a day. A sin in the morning, during the day, the afternoon, and a sin at night. That sounds like a pretty good person. Well, let's figure out how that would work out over time. 3 sins a day times 365 days in a year times average lifespan currently is 73. That'd be 79,000, almost 80,000, 79,935. If you were really good, maybe just 2 sins a day would still be 53,000 sins over the course of your lifetime. And if you sin just once a day, it would be over 26,000 sins cumulatively. So all have sinned. That even the people that we think of as being pretty good people, really miss the mark. We fall short of certainly of who God is and what God would want for us. And so Christ was sent to make things right. During World War II's battle of the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force made a courageous defense of their country over the skies over Great Britain, foiling the Germans' plans for an invasion. And afterwards, Prime Minister Winston Churchill said in the House of Commons, "Never in the history of mankind have so many owed so much to so few." But think about it. When we think about the role that Jesus played and plays in our lives, what the cross represents, never in the history of the universe have we owed so much to one person, that being Jesus Christ. There's also a story about during the Civil War that conscription, the draft, was not an absolute thing the way, it was at least until fairly recently. I'm old enough to have had to register for the draft. Because the way it worked during the Civil War, whoever was drafted could always hire a substitute if they could afford it. In fact, in 1862, the government allowed this to go on the theory that as long as each name that was drawn produced somebody to go into the service, it didn't make any difference who that drafted person, whether it was the drafted person or one who was hired to take his place. And so there's a story about a farmer who was drafted. He was deeply troubled about leaving his family because his wife had died. There'd be no one to support and take care of his children in his absence. And the day before he was to leave, his neighbor came over to visit him and said, "I've been thinking, you're needed here at home. So I've decided to go in your place." Well, this farmer was so overjoyed for a few minutes that he was speechless. The offer seemed too good to be true. He He grasped the hand of the young man, praised God for this one who was willing to go as his substitute. Well, sadly, the man who went in his place was shot and killed in his very first battle, in fact. And when the farmer heard that bad news, he immediately rode out to the battlefield, found the body of the friend and arranged to have it buried in the churchyard near the spot where they had often stopped to talk after church services. And on a piece of marble, he carved the inscription with his own hands. It was roughly done, but with every blow of the hammer on the chisel, tears fell from his eyes. He placed this marker on the grave of his substitute, the one who died in his place. The inscription read, "He died for me." We are reminded all the time, but certainly in our celebration of the Reformation, that we are saved because one died for us, that one being Jesus the Christ. On that note, we'll end today. Hope you have a great day. Look forward to being with you again tomorrow. Bye.